Hello and welcome to this video in which we're going to go over the Phillidor Sixth rank defense, one of the most important drawing techniques in rook endings. Okay, so this is the starting position of the Phillidor Sixth rank defense, and we see in this position that white has an extra pawn in a rook ending. White is trying to advance their pawn to somehow make a queen and win the game. Our goal is simply to secure a draw because we have no realistic winning chances here. We can identify that a position is a Phillidor sixth rank defense position because the defending side's king is in the path of the attacking side's passed pawn, and also the attacking side's king has not yet passed its own pawn. So in this case, they're adjacent to each other. There are two moves that are important to remember in order to secure a draw. The first one happens in the starting position, which is to cut off the king so that it is not able to pass its own pawn. So here we play our rook to a6, and now this will prevent the white king from moving to, for example, e6 or d6 because the rook is now covering it. So our general plan is that we are going to leave our rook on the sixth row. We're just going to shuttle it back and forth between whatever squares are safe. And we'll just keep it there until at some point white is going to advance their pawn, because once they advance their pawn, then that means the pawn will protect from the rook's attack, so they can advance their king. And once they advance their pawn, immediately at that point, we're going to go back and pivot to the rear so that we can start giving some checks. So let's see how this looks in action. So if white makes a waiting move, we make a waiting move. If white makes another waiting move, we make another waiting move. So they're not really getting anywhere there. White can also give us a check, but we just slide up with our king. They give us another check, we slide back with our king. Our king will shift back and forth between these two squares. They go back. Again, it's our turn. We could actually, in fact, here, if we wanted, we could move our king up. It would be also good. Or we make a waiting move, totally fine. So white's not really making any progress. Another thing that they could do is they could try to force a pawn ending by moving their rook to f6 with the goal to get our rook to abandon this sixth rank. So let's say they move their rook here, we make a waiting move, they move their rook here, and if we were forced to, for example, move our rook to a1 and retreat, we might be in a little bit of trouble. But here we can actually just trade to a pawn ending, and this pawn ending is now a draw. One of the issues for white is that they're not able to get the opposition, in part because of where their pawn is placed. It's in fact where they would want to have their king placed to get the opposition. So white can't really make any progress in this position without first advancing this pawn. Now by advancing this pawn, it means they're threatening to move their king up to e6 because the pawn is shielding their king. And this is where we pivot. So we switch gears. We move our rook back to a2. We can move it to a1 if it weren't for this other rook. And now what white would probably do is move their king up. And then we can just start giving checks. So check, 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 and essentially white's king has nowhere to escape from these checks. So these are the two moves to know that first, from the starting position, we have to cut off the king. Then at some point, white will advance their pawn, and this is when we pivot to go back and do checks from behind. Now, why do we have to do it in this two-step process? Like, why can't we just start from this position and start giving checks? Well, it turns out this is a losing move. The reason is that white is now able to move their king to d6, where it will get shelter from checks. We can't go here check because it's not check anymore. The reason this is so important to lure the pawn forward is that in this particular position, if we imagine that the pawn had advanced one square already, white would have nowhere to go with the king that was safe from the checks. However, with the pawn on d5 instead of d6, it means that white has secured a little spot for their king, and so they're able to win the game from this. So this is the Phillidor position. To give a quick recap, what we do we cut off the king on the 6th row, we hang tight until at some point white will eventually move their pawn forward, then we go back, and then we start doing checks. So this is the details of Phillidor position. What we will do in the second video that I'm creating a link to is we will go into some of the alternate scenarios that are similar but a little bit different to try to get a deeper understanding. As example of what I mean, like if we had the starting position and it was white to play instead of it being black to play, is there any way that we can still make a draw? We'll look at also another similar position, like we take the exact Phillidor position, but we add pawns for each side. How does that change things? So that's in next video. For now, have a nice day. See you soon.